Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the committee meetings for Education, Operations, and Finance, the April 14th, 2025 meeting. We're going to start with the educational section. Mrs. Gogler.
Mr. Fonzone. Present. Mrs. Gogler. Dr. Hartman is absent. Mrs. Cromer. Here. Mr. Kubat.
Here.
Mr. McCool. Here. Mr. Saloom. Mr. Shields.
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Present.
8 present.
Thank you, Mrs. Gogler. We do have one administrative regulation on for this evening for your review to add to our ARs. It is just an AR on cellular telephones 717 AR1. So this does outline and just go through 2 sections, district-owned cellular telephone use, so for any of our employees that have district phones, and then there is also a section for personal cellular telephone use. So we did make some changes to that because there are several reasons that we have our employees need to use their phones for specific things like navigate a lot of our communication tools for our families, or apps that are on their phones. Obviously, family emergencies, communication with staff throughout the school day, 2-step verification for their Google accounts. So we did outline and add all of those pieces into the AR, so it is attached for you. Then if we jump into curriculum, we do have a couple of presentations in here. The first one is not a formal presentation. I just have some information to share with the board. We are looking at adding a new offering for the summer. It would be a 3-day summer camp, be a Lego STEM camp. So we did receive several sets of Legos through a grant that we were working through. So it would be 2 sessions each day. So it would run from 8:30 to 12. 8:30 to 10 would be for our Gockley students, kindergarten and first grade, and then 10:30 to 12 would be for Steckel, grades 2 and 3. So it'd be an engaging hands-on camp that will introduce young learners to key STEM concepts through Lego-based activities while incorporating the 4 C's of learning, which are critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. They'll explore problem solving, basic and engineering, and teamwork in a fun, interactive environment. So the cost of the camp would solely be the hourly rate for 2 teachers. The salary will cover 4.5 hours of work per day for the 3 days that the camp runs, as well as 2 hours of prep time total. Students would be utilizing the Lego Education Spike, Prime, and Brick Q sets that were purchased with grant money. And both of those sets include a dedicated STEM curriculum. So it would not be curriculum that our staff have to create. It's already created for us. The camp will be free of charge for all students, and each opportunity will be open to the first 30 students that register. Families will be responsible for providing their own transportation to and from camp. This would be really an extension of our after-school STEM program that the students were here sharing at our last meeting. It would be an extension 3-day opportunity for the summer. So we'd like to push this forward to the board meeting for your approval. It would run July 21st through the 23rd, and it will be at Gockley if we are able to run it. Okay, so that's it for that one. And I would then like to invite up our data team for our next presentation for a data review.
Good
Good afternoon, everyone. We're here this afternoon to share with you our Whitehall-Coplay School District 23-24 data review, and also in a moment, Mrs. Lloyd will introduce you to some of our data leaders and explain a little bit about that position and how we've grown as a team throughout this school year. So as you are aware, our upcoming testing window for PSSAs and Keystone is coming upon us. When we return from the break, the dates of the 22nd through the 24th, we will begin with our ELA, followed by mathematics on the 28th and 29th, and then science for our 5th graders, which is a change this year, will happen on April 30th and May 1st. And then as we work our way into May, we will have our Keystones for Algebra 1 at the middle school, as well as our algebra, literature, and biology at the high school in mid-May then as well. Ongoing communication has been shared with all of our families via a family letter that was sent out in November. We also sent one out as of April 1st with all the communications, and we do have that updated on our website as well. So I'm pleased to turn it over then to Mrs. Lloyd to introduce members of our data team, and we'll be happy to share data and updates with you.
So I'm very happy to introduce you to our new data leaders. This is a new leadership structure we have. This year was the first year we had our data leaders. We have a few of them here with us tonight. Abby Cuck is from Gockley. She's here to represent the elementary. Rebecca Vigliani is from Steckles. She's not here tonight. Steph Trumbauer from Zephyr. She couldn't make it tonight either, but we have Kaylee Dietrich from the middle school and Gabby Smith from the high school. So this year, they've been working really hard. We've been partnering with the IU for DataWise. They've been taking a look at not only district data, but school data and being a leader in their schools as far as sharing the data from our local assessments, from IXL, iReady, as well as state data as well. So I'm going to turn it over to them and share with you what we have.
So one of our first tasks as data leaders was to explore creating a mission statement, so as we entered our own individualized buildings, we could create consistency and unity amongst the data that we were sharing and the ways to which we were sharing it. And so our data culture definition reads, Whitehall-Coplay School District's data culture is rooted in shared beliefs and actions that emphasize exploring data to foster collective success. This culture reflects a deep understanding that data can drive informed decisions and purposeful actions to create positive outcomes and enhance stakeholder engagement. Established on a foundation of inquiry and anchored in evidence, Whitehall-Coplay's data culture promotes a collaborative approach to understanding and utilizing data. So within our data culture initiatives, we started off again with creating that definition and then supporting and facilitating data analysis within our own individualized buildings. We also had the privilege of participating in a DataWise training at the IU, and then further providing guidance and data review during our faculty and department meetings.
Our elementary focus, we assisted with the MTSS data meetings, so those are 3 times a year, beginning, middle, end. We also were integrating the goal setting, so we worked with teachers in these meetings for them to set goals and also reflect on their classroom data for iReady and also FastBridge.
Our secondary focus then took a look at our IXL implementation as we expanded that to new departments, such as biology and ELA, and further invested within it within the math department. We also will begin distributing monthly IXL data to keep all staff on track.
Another one of our initiatives was we led the faculty meetings. So we led the October meeting, which focused on the overview of our building data. And we did this consistently, K to, I guess, 12. So K to 5 elementary looked very similar because we're in a little bit of a different place with our MTSS, but middle school and high school also did that. And then in February, we looked at the PSSA scores and explored those, compared those to our iReady and FastBridge for elementary. And then in the secondary schools, we looked at IXL data for them.
Okay, so today we're going to show you 2 different representations of our data at each of the elementary, middle school, and high school levels. One of the representations that we're going to show you is from PVOS, which is a growth indication. And it's going to look like this. So just to kind of give you a quick overview of what you're going to see. If you look at the pill bar graph across the bottom, there is a dotted black line in the middle. That is where the state projects us to be. So that is what they think that where our students are going to score on the PSSAs. The white circle is actually where we do score, And then you can see the scale there. Obviously, far left is not meeting the growth expectations, and far right, obviously the further right, the better, just because of exceeding the growth expectations. So we're going to show you these representations at each of our grade levels that take the PSSAs, and then we're also going to show you a proficiency graph as well to see actually where our students scored. Okay.
So in regards to our elementary PBUS data, again, we just want to focus on that this is one piece of data that we use to drive our instruction. As our team has already spoken about, we're also diving into not only PSSA and PBUS, but also our local data classroom summative assessments as well. So in this focus area, it really helped to pinpoint areas where we are looking for growth. That's been something that we've built into all of our data meetings at the elementary level. Abby's done a wonderful job leading her team, as well as our building principals and their MTSS teams, to not only have our teachers set goals for growth, but also involving our students in those growth goals as well for, again, their local data, classroom performance, and then obviously our state testing. So with this next testing round coming up in just a few weeks, we certainly have the expectations that we're hoping to see far more growth than coming up from our next round of assessments as well. Some things that we've been working on to help to support growth would be training of spaced learning over time for mathematics in particular, with revisiting various skills and standards that our students may have struggled with that we're looking again through all of our data sources to support them. Many of our buildings call that Throwback Thursday. They're working on a lot of these skills and concepts to help the long-term retention of our students, that they're not having that forgetting curve that we forget that they're learning when we're going through our pacing, but we have that opportunity to revisit that with students, that it is always fresh in their mind. And then we've been working a lot as a team on structured literacy initiatives, and as we progress through our ELA review cycle, we're really taking a deep dive to make sure that anything we recommend to the Board of Education is certainly in line with that as well. So now Abby will just go over a little bit. We're going to, as Kaylee mentioned, just share very briefly our overall data when it comes to respect of our proficiency levels then at each building.
So this slide here shows Steckles, PSSA, obviously just the third grade, but this is our ELA and math grade level data. And this is slightly below, but as Cassie just mentioned, we have a lot of things in place already to show that growth we're hoping moving forward.
In regards to on the next slide, we did put all of Zephyr Elementary together. So just a few items to note as well. Last year was our first year of implementation with our students on the online testing platform. So a few things that we've also put in place to make sure that our students are very familiar is additional practice with our online training tools. We did notice specifically in our data at Zephyr Elementary with grades 4 and 5, they are required to do a text-dependent analysis. So we really tried to focus with the teachers at Zephyr a little more on both the graphic organizer with students beginning those on their own, the written part, and then ensuring that they had that typing stamina as well. So when we do get the results from the spring PSSA, we will be able then to have 2 years of comparative data with the online assessment. Our previous data here is with the paper pencil version as well, so we'll have some of that comparative data. Just a few items of note with Zephyr Elementary's data. We were slightly below the state average in our third grade, as Abby mentioned, but we were a little bit above. The state average is 51.4. For grade 4, we were at 53%, and then a little bit below in our fifth grade at 46% compared to 52%. Some highlights then from math comparatively to the state data. Our fourth grade, that was an area that was above. So state data was at 48.6% and our students performed at 53%. So Zephyr has really done a great job of discussions between grade 4 and 5 because they did see that slight increase, again, to keep those things going for next year for our students. And then in regards to science, just to also make sure that we're all aware, this year we have the implementation of the new STEEL standards. So that means a few things. This test is no longer going to be comparative to the new assessment coming out, since it will be built on all the new standards. The cohort of students, so the group that was in fourth grade last year, the assessment for science has now moved up to grade 5. So we will have some comparative data, but again, they will be very different tests. They're built on brand new standards, a whole different format. But historically with science in the district, looking back to the 2021 school year, we've seen seen updates and growth with our students. So back in 2021, we were at 74%, and over the years, we've been climbing. So we are now at 83% proficiency, which is above the state average of the 77% proficiency for science in grade 4. So again, we will certainly keep everyone posted as we transition. This year is a waiver from the state, not for participation. The expectation is that all of our students in 5 and 8 do participate in science. However, it is going to be the accountability waiver with the actual data that we can get some scores back and really get a chance to deep dive into that as well.
So next up, we have the middle school PVAS scores. So these are your growth indicators. Again, as I previously stated, that black line is where the state thought we would score, and the white circle is where we actually scored. So at the top, I have your 6th, 7th, and 8th in PSSA math. In the middle there, I have your ELA scores, your 6th, 7th, and 8th, and then we only test 8th grade in the science. That's why there's only one on the bottom. Okay, this one here is the proficiency levels at each grade. So this is ELA. You can see the different percentages where red is your below basic, yellow is your basic, green is proficient, and the blue is your advanced scoring at the top. So you can see 6th, 7th, and 8th grade for ELA there. On the next slide, I have the math ones with your 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And then finally, I do have the science. And again, we only have one grade level taking the science PSSA, so only one bar graph there.
And as far as the middle school PSSA results, they are all on par with the state averages, right around a couple percentage points.
We also have a small group take the Keystone exams at the middle school. So our Alg 1 Keystone scores, I have both the projected from the PVAS. Oh, one back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, one back. There we go. I have that across the top, so that's our PVAS scores. You can see in the white circles where we scored, and then in our pie chart here, the yellow is the basic. We didn't have anybody score below basic, and that yellow actually only was 2 students last year. All the rest were proficient or advanced at the middle level.
So now we have the high school growth indicator. So there are 3 assessments that are taken at the high school. We have Algebra 1, we have biology, and then we have literature. Algebra 1 is primarily 9th grade students. Biology and literature are primarily 10th. And then you can see the growth indicators there as well. And then we have our proficiency ratings. Again, like Kaylee mentioned, the numbers within the bar graphs, those are each percentages. And then there you can see Algebra 1, literature, and biology as well.
So the next steps and future impacts, we're happy to present. This will be the 2nd year in a row. In August, we're going to invite faculty, administrators to go over this current school year's PSSA data and really take a look at not just the overall data per building, but take a look at, what specific areas, not just in state testing, but also our local data and how to drive instruction and how to create instructional opportunities for our students. How does this impact our MTSS system, our interventions, and our enrichment programs? We'll continue the faculty meetings with constant data reviews throughout the school year and really try to, individualize it by department so that departments can really take a look at, the strengths and weaknesses in our curriculum, in our groupings, so we can use the data more effectively.
And then as the team said, we do want to continue using all sources of that local data that we have to continue to have very strong Tier 1 instruction for all of our students so that we can improve those learning outcomes. A portion of that as well will tie into our end of the year data meetings that we will have after our final local data assessments as well. And then that's where our MTSS team will help to support our general education teachers and all in the building to really help to identify those areas of interventions for students to make sure that they are matched correctly to target the skills that they need, in addition to those enrichment opportunities for our students as well. So Megan and I would just like to thank not only the 3 leaders that are here, but also Steph and Rebecca, the building principals, and also all the other leaders when it came time for our faculty meetings. Really everyone took a deep dive into this data, so we look forward to all the continued opportunities to continue to build the data culture, and we appreciate again all the efforts from the data team. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for all the work that you did all year. I know it was a big feat taking on being the data leaders, as it was something new, but we have really seen it grow into something that we want to continue doing as a district. Next up, we have an update on our standards-based grading. So Mrs. Herr will come back up with Mrs. Saylor.
Good evening, everyone. We wanted to give you an update as to where we are with our standards-based grading and reporting. As we have discussed before, this will be rolled out next year for our kindergarten and first grade students. So there has been a lot of planning that has gone into the process, and right now we are in the phase where we are every week communicating with our families so that they have a good understanding of what this is going to look like for their children. So most of our communication has gone through the Coplay Parent Update, which, as you probably know, we send out parent updates every Sunday. And this is just mainly the main form of communication for our families. So it was first introduced. We started with the letter in February, I believe. And this is how we introduced it in the parent update, just starting in the 2025-26 school year. We will be transitioning from traditional grading to a standards-based grading system in kindergarten and first grade. A letter was sent home with students this week explaining more about this process. We will also feature short videos explaining standards-based grading in our future parent updates. The letter that was sent home to families was also linked in the parent update as well. So they received a hard copy that came home with their child, and then we also had it in the parent update. So this is the first of our videos on the characteristics of a successful Zephyr. These go back to the profile that we've been creating, the profile of a graduate. And we have worked with Andy Fainal on this and a lot of our teacher leaders to create these videos. We're going to share, there's 10 total videos. We will share the first 2 with you tonight. So this one focuses on how students or successful students will be problem solvers.
Zephyrs are problem solver. In kindergarten and first grade, students who are problem solvers can resolve conflicts appropriately with help and on their own. Resolves conflict with support. Every day, students are learning to navigate challenges and become skilled problem solvers. We see it in their ability to manage emotions with a little guidance. We hear it in their use of I statements, taking ownership rather than placing blame. And we witness their growth when they offer sincere apologies with support after a conflict.
But I want red. But I want red. But I want red.
Remember, boys and girls, we have to share.
You can use it. I would share.
Resolves conflict independently. As students develop and grow, they begin to problem solve more independently. They are now able to manage emotions, take turns, and apologize. These are the practical skills our students are developing to become effective problem solvers. They're learning to navigate conflicts with empathy and responsibility.
Oh no! I'm never gonna do this again.
Remember to keep trying your best.
And we apologize for the sound. I know that was not the best, but as you can see, our students really enjoyed creating these videos. And then this is the next one in the series, which is focusing on students being problem solvers.
Zephyrs are adaptable. In kindergarten and first grade, adaptable students transition well and can accept change. Adapts to classroom routine. Being adaptable means being flexible and ready to learn, even if things don't go exactly as you expect. It looks like knowing the classroom schedule and being able to follow it quickly or pivot when needed. It is important because it helps children feel more confident in navigating the classroom, allowing them to thrive socially and academically.
All right, so we're gonna try to go on the smartboard. I think our smartboard's frozen. Can we walk back to our seats and take out our workbooks instead? You're gonna turn to page 27. Got it?
Got it.
Go ahead. Brooklyn's ready. Joe's ready. Nico's ready. Nice job, Scarlett. Stay. All right, perfect. Stay right there. All right, grab your pencils and you can start to do page 27.
Transitions well. Transitions well means students can be moving from one activity to another quickly and quietly. It looks like not getting upset if the activity you are doing is over and it's time for something new. It is important because smooth transitions help children feel safe, confident, and ready to learn.
All right, time to clean up. I need your iPads away. And I need you looking like a whole body listener. In 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Nice job. 3, 2, 1.
Accepts change. Accepting change means being able to stay calm and adjust when things are different in the classroom. It looks like staying positive when schedule changes, like having indoor recess instead of outdoor. It is important because each day can be different in school.
All right, let's go. Uh-oh, freeze. I forgot library is canceled today. Can we all turn around, face that way, and Nico lead us back in? Whole body listener at your table. Good job, Brooklyn is ready to go. Scarlett, nice job. Shamar.
So we really wanted to, when we were creating these videos, we wanted to make sure that we were consistent with the presentation of the characteristics, going back to that profile of a Zephyr, which will be K-12. And also, these characteristics will be exhibited on the standards-based report cards. So students will be rated according to these characteristics, which is why it's so important to tell parents what the expectations are, but also feature the students so that we can be using these videos to use with them so that they know what we're expecting of them and what we're also assessing them on.
Two other features that we'd like to share with you this evening regarding updates to our standards-based grading process is that we are pleased to announce that we have an entire portion of our website now dedicated to standards-based grading. So Mr. Reader, if you wouldn't mind clicking on that, that comes up on our main homepage. You can also access it from our curriculum page and also from the Gockley Elementary page. So as we have our setup here, of course, we just wanted to make sure that our families, community are aware of the upcoming change. We have included there some active links. Again, that letter that Denise mentioned that we shared in hard copy and then within the newsletter SMORE, that is also linked again. In addition to the first two videos that we shared with the team here as far as what is standards-based grading and that transition to trimesters, we also thought again that it was important to inform our parents and community why we are making that change. And then as you can see, we just extracted some of the highlights from those those first 2 videos to really just give a little more of an image to our families and the community as far as the focus and design with the change and the growth in the ladder of mastery, and then how we will actually be assessing our students. And then again, we also wanted to make sure we put some information as far as the grading and progress reports. Those will be a little bit different as well for our families. And then to finally summarize there, we also have the video link to the trimesters if families would like to go back and watch that, but we also do summarize it then, obviously, in that bulleted format with just the text if that's easier. Also accessible at the top of the page, and you do have a hard copy printed in front of you. We did put together a standards-based grading parent and family guide. So this is something that we could simply create a QR code that could bring parents right to this guide. Again, Paul is accessing it directly from the website. So it's just a little bit of an overview, again, with a lot of that information. So we just really want to make sure that we have a plethora of ways that we're sharing out this information and that it is accessible to our students, our parents, our teachers, and also our community as well. So we hope that both of these platforms, the website, the resources are helpful to our families in understanding this transition and that it goes very smoothly since we have been working so far in advance to make sure that we're making these communications out to our families. So as Denise said, we really appreciate the ongoing work of our Gockley team and administrators working on this change, and we'll be happy to bring you some additional reports then for the May Education Committee. So thank you.
Thank you both very much. Moving on, we have Mr. Hartman here to talk to us a bit about girls wrestling.
Good afternoon, everybody. We would like to present to you today the opportunity to add a girls wrestling club for the 25-26 athletic seasons. One thing I need to clarify for you is when I use the term club, it is much different than thinking of the Spanish club or student council or something like that. In PIAA language, to have a club operates almost identically to having a PIAA interscholastic team. We don't feel we're at that point yet. We want to use this as an opportunity for growth of girls wrestling in our school district. This year we had 2 girls that participated on our high school level, and we had a handful of girls. As you know, you approved junior high girls wrestling club in the fall, late fall. Okay, so we want to expand on that opportunity for our female student athletes. We will be able to absorb any of the costs and any of those things within the current wrestling budget. Our coaches on the boys' side will coach the girls as well, as they have done. Previously, our girls participate during the regular season as a part of our boys' team. By PIAA rule, they are not allowed in our setting to compete against girls until the postseason. We'd like to change that and allow our young ladies to participate against other young ladies in the sport of girls wrestling, and we do think that will help us grow the sport as well on the junior high and high school level. I know there are a number of girls that participate in our youth program, and we just want to be able to provide the opportunity and the experience for them to work through this process. And if girls wrestling grows in Whitehall, that's awesome, and eventually we'll get to the point where we have a team. I have seen in my experience the last few years a number of schools have just jumped right to a team, and really they're spending large sums of money and have 2 or 3 girls, and it's not really that cost effective. In this manner, we'll be able to incrementally start girls wrestling as an official girls sport under the club designation at a relatively low expense as a part of what we're currently doing that gives our female athletes a great opportunity. We feel it's a pragmatic approach. If it doesn't grow, it doesn't grow, and we're not stuck with, that's probably the wrong word, but when we add a girls wrestling team, we'll add additional girls wrestling coaches, and we'll need a girls wrestling practice room, and we'll need a girls wrestling budget. In this forum, in this manner, by starting a club, we'll be able to phase this in appropriately and take it as it goes. Any questions? All right, great, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hartman. Mr. Milley, for the record, Dr. Hartman joined the virtual call at 4:12. So moving into sharing and discussion, I'm going to ask that we can push letter A, which was the joint grant with the Lehigh County Conservation District, to our board meeting that due to a scheduled conflict. Ms. Senicola is unable to be here this evening, but hopefully she will be able to attend our April 28th board meeting. We have a couple other things on here. We have an annual agreement for CSC, Community Services for Children, that is now housed out of this building to continue their program, their pre-K counts program with us into next year. The only thing that may change, which wouldn't change the agreement, would be the number of classrooms that they have. They currently operate 2 classrooms out of this building with the ability to expand to up to 6. So we won't know until the summer how many we'll have moving into next year, but hopefully we can get more of our kiddos in here. The next one is the Whitehall Township Police MOU. So requesting to move this forward for approval to renew the annual community, wrong one, but the Whitehall Township Police MOU for next year. Next one is our administrative support MOU with Sandy Rex. So Sandy Rex has been working with the district for the last couple years, continuing to provide us with federal program support. So that is through CLIU. This will be the second year that it is that way. So we are requesting to maintain those services with her. And then we do have one field trip request on here, which is to go to the Franklin Institute. And I apologize, Board Docs is moving very slowly today. So it is for our high school students to travel to the Franklin Institute on May 20th. It is a class trip for approximately 60 people. They will be chaperoned by Lucille Cucco, Christina Stout, and Jess Angler. It's $26 a student, and they will have the chance to experience an exhibit which displays specially preserved cadavers, human organ systems, and human organs. And that is all that I have for this evening, Mrs. Gogler. Thank you.
Okay, our meeting will adjourn at 4:36.
Thank you, Mrs. Dogwood. Moving on to operations, transportation, and committee, Mr. Saloom.
Okay, I guess the same roll call as education. The IU 21 Facility Committee to report school board resolution and see as attached. And then also, Camp Whitehall summer trip. Mrs. Schiffer, would you like to discuss this?
Yeah, you skipped over that first one. We have Mrs. Fairclough coming up to present for the IU facilities
I
plan.
apologize.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Oh, thank you. So the first document that you are looking at is the multi-district special education facilities plan for next year. Excuse me, the highlighted in yellow are all the school-based programs that are not run by the IU, that are run by districts. So for example, you'll see our life skills programs at Zephyr, Whitehall Middle School, and the high school is where we might have students that come to our life skills program through a contract through another school district. You can see that there's other districts within in the proposal. I just wanted to touch base on the ones here at Whitehall. Okay. The next slide are 2 proposals. The IU facility plan, they're making recommendations for next year. The first one is to, is there a second document? No. Okay, so the ones in oranges are the ones in orange are the proposed. So we have 2 multi-disabilities behavioral support classrooms in grades K2, and that location is still being determined. They are looking to recommend opening a K2 life skills classroom, and that is a location to be determined. The IU is looking to move the Allentown Learning and Adjustment School and the Lehigh County Enhanced Autism, both center-based programs, to a Center Valley location. And the final one that they are looking to get approval on is the deaf and hard of hearing classroom that will be moved from Northern Lehigh Middle School to Orfield Middle School. Okay, so those are just looking for the board to approve those recommendations. Okay.
Thank you, Karen. We'll move those forward then. So with Camp Whitehall, you see a very brief attachment. They had approached the township on Thursday, July 10th. Sorry, forgot my microphone. So the township had approached us with Camp Whitehall 2025, Thursday, July 10th. They're looking for us to provide transportation. It's something that we've done in the past. Very briefly, speaking with Mr. Bowder, it would look to cost approximately $175 for the driver plus the fuel costs. So I am recommending that we would do that for the township if there's no concern or question from the board. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Mr. Saloom.
Okay, we'd like to adjourn this at 4:40.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Saloom and Mr. Schiffer. Moving on to finance, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'll call the Finance Committee meeting to order at 4:40 PM. Roll call remains the same. Yes. Dr. Hartman has now made her presence in person. Very exciting. And you're just in time for our public participation. Mr. Anthony Kopak is here this evening to discuss taxes. Mr. Kopak, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. I got a little surprised that the meeting's at a new building, so is this where it's going to continue to be? Okay. Well, the last time I was at a meeting, we had a nice little dialogue. I mean, Mr. Fonzone asked me to find him $4 million. I mean, that would be my only guess, that your expenditures are $4 million out from what the revenue is you currently have, would be my guess. But since you look on the board docs, there is no attachment when it says final budget proposal, so I don't know. I haven't seen any numbers. Why there's no attachments for the public to look at, I don't understand that. But with that being said, I'll go back to the thing I learned at the first meeting, and I'd like to clarify it, was that all the students get free lunch here. That is correct. I don't understand why parents that can afford to pay for lunches are not paying for the lunches, why it's a burden on the taxpayer. If you look at the other school districts, children pay for their lunches that can afford it. Yeah, there's economically disadvantaged people that get lunch. I understand that. But there are people that can afford it, and they should be paying for it. It should not be on the taxpayer's burden. You'll find some money there. Second, I mean, it came to something I was reading. We approved, I don't know if it was a principal or a temporary thing, a salary $90 an hour, not to exceed $720 a day. The average person cannot comprehend that. That's why there's a big disconnect with the public, because you're talking, the majority of senior citizens on Social Security are living on $65 a day. So you wonder why there's a big disconnect between the public and what's going on in the school district here. And trust me, I'm not even meeting the $65 a day with my Social Security. Yeah, I might have some other income, but if you go on my Social Security, it's going to take me 2 months of Social Security payments to pay your tax bill. So if everybody wants to be on equal here, everybody should be paying 2 months of their salary, then we're all equal. I'd like it to be equal, but you come up with the same old lines. Well, the salaries, benefits, everything under the sun, but the township and the county have the same problems. They face the same problems you face with their budgets, and they have not raised taxes. So while we go through the tax increase every year, I don't understand it. The only thing I can attribute it to is we never vote no on nothing here. Never. The only thing you voted no on was the charter school. But when it comes to voting on stuff that costs money, when we come to the board meeting, where we vote on stuff, we group five, six, a number of items in one vote. Well, maybe not everything in that vote is worthy of a yes vote, but we lump them all together into one vote. So, to me, there's something wrong with that. Each thing that the taxpayer is paying for should get a separate vote. They shouldn't be lumped together in A, B, C, D, and E in one vote. I don't understand it. I mean, the school district's going to propose all kinds of stuff. If the school board never votes no on anything, of course the spending's going to go through the roof. We're never going to live within our means. I was taught to live within my means. I make $1, I spend $1. It's real simple. You got to live within your means, but we just come up with more and more things to spend money on. But, being that Metz is coming up to talk, I figured, that was good timing to talk about the lunch. But I would like somebody to tell me one thing you ever voted no on. I mean, yeah, I'm not at every meeting, but every once in a while there's a rogue no vote, and I don't know what they're voting no on because you're voting on 5 different things. There's one no vote, but is it for A, B, C, or D, or E? But, it's just, it's just disappointing that, you have to put the burden on the taxpayers. And yes, the state needs to step up. And the problem is that it was already passed on the ballot in 2017 that the homesteads can be exempt 100%, but the state has done nothing for 8 years. Might do nothing, just like any other government. They don't fund it. Nobody talks about it. They just want to sweep it under the rug. The teachers union doesn't want it. But people that are making money off this system don't want it. But it overwhelmingly was voted to do that back in 2017, and nothing's been done to help us. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kopap. All right, so we'll move along in our meeting here. I'm going to turn it over now to our business manager, Mr. Millay.
All right, tonight we have Garrett Moore here from PFM to discuss the next borrowing for the bonds. Given the budget that we're about to present and everyone knows the stock market, bond market is going haywire at this time. So what we're recommending tonight is just borrowing enough money to complete the projects that we have started, which currently is our electrical system and the windows in Steckel and the middle school and some smaller projects that we already had planned. That is going to equate to approximately, right now, the handout that's attached is about $4 million. We will be truing that number up between now and the time we finalize the paperwork. So Garrett is here to take you through the handout that you have online and explain the bond market and what we need to do between now and the next few weeks.
Great. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. It's good seeing everyone again. In front of you or on your computer is a copy of our presentation. For those of you who have been around for a few years and been through this financing, this handout's going to look very akin to the ones you've seen in the past. As Mr. Millay mentioned on page 2, spot on. The tax-exempt municipal market over the last really 2 weeks or so has been in a state of turbulence, to say the least. We've been seeing interest rates go up and down by as much as 0.5% per day. If you look on page 2, this is our standard interest rate chart that you all have likely seen before. As I mentioned, with the news on tariffs, international tariffs, and then the 90-day stay on some of the tariffs, the market's been going up, it's been going down. But what I would direct your attention to, if you would, is the middle chart And in the bottom left corner of that middle chart, there's a series of small boxes. And all I'm going to point to is that blue one that really says, when you look at a historical perspective, going back over the last 30 years or so, we're in a position now where rates are about at historical averages. So about 50% of the time rates have been higher than they are today, and about 50% of the time rates have been lower. So obviously we're not at the all-time historic lows that we saw in the August of 2020 timeframe. But again, when you look at a long-term historical perspective, still a relatively attractive time for municipal issuers to be entering the market. And we expect, or we hope over the next coming days or weeks, the market to stabilize once it has the opportunity and ability to digest some of these things that are coming out of Washington. Page 3 is your standard debt service schedule that we always show. This outlines all your various debt issuances to date. The top half is your debt service requirements, so principal plus interest, and the bottom half is what's called your local effort requirements. So that's principal plus interest less any sort of state aid you receive through the PlanCon process. As most of you, if not all of you, know, the PlanCon program is on moratorium. So similar to the previous borrowings that you've done over the last couple years, this borrowing that we're here to discuss this evening would not reap the benefit of any sort of PlanCon reimbursement. Page 4 is really the slide that's most important in this presentation. So as Mr. Millay had mentioned, for this series of 2025 issuance, we're looking to borrow $4 million, or approximately $4 million. And that's really just to put a pencil in all the existing projects that you have going on. So really just not funding or providing funding for any new projects, rather just wrap up and complete the ones that are currently underway. Based off the schedule we're going to talk about on the next slide, the anticipated settlement for this issuance would be in the early to mid-June timeframe. So that's the point at which the money would be wired to your accounts and would be available for you all to spend on the projects. You'll notice up at the top, we're next to the structure where it says WRAP. So similar to the previous financings that the district has done, we're going to utilize what's called a wraparound debt service structure. And that can be illustrated when you look at columns 3, 4, and 5. So column 3 is the existing local effort that matches the previous page. So that's the debt you already have issued. We would then be layering in the estimated debt service in column 4, such that when you look at column 5, your aggregate debt service is level or declining. So going back to column 4, we're really deferring principal payments until your existing debt pays off out in 2047 or so, at which point that's when we amortize pretty much all of the principal. And the benefit of doing that is it mitigates the upfront budgetary impact, as opposed to if you went with a 20 or 25-year level debt service structure similar to your mortgage where you're amortizing principal and interest. That if you did it that way, it would have a much larger impact on your budget. So this is the way that the district has historically funded its projects, and we are just looking to continue kind of as per usual with the district and its course of financing.
All right, I just want to jump in and say one thing. You can see the increase for this to next year's budget would be $213,000. However, we still had to work into the budget approximately $300,000 with the current bonds. So if you look in column 3, for this year, the debt payment was $7,006,000. If we did not do this issue, the debt service would be $7,294,000. So that's why you're going to see shortly why you're going to see about a $500,000 increase when we look at budget. It won't be the $213,000.
It's a good point. So half of it's coming from the existing debt, and then half of it would be coming from this new issue that's being proposed. Good point. Switching to page 5, this should look very similar to past presentations. At the top, we have a sample motion that would just authorize us, in conjunction with your bond counsel and solicitor, Fox Rothschild, to begin the process of getting the bonds and taking the bonds to market. So that would include drafting all the legal documents, drafting the preliminary official statement, and things of that nature. Below, we have a sample timeline. So obviously, we're here this evening to give you all an update as far as the plan of finance. That authorization to proceed, it could happen this evening, it could happen at some point in the future. But we are, as of now, targeting in April, at your April 28th meeting, a consideration for the parameters resolution. As some of you might recall from the past, a parameters resolution is a legal document that gives the financing team the ability to enter the market when the market is most opportune. So in that document, it has maximum numbers. So it lists a maximum interest rate, a maximum principal amount, and a maximum principal amount annually. Again, those amounts are maxes. We do not anticipate issuing the maximum amount or at the maximum interest rate, but it's a state requirement that we need to follow that gives us the parameters in which we, the financing team, can operate within. At the end of the day, all we're going to do is fund the $4 million of projects that's necessary and no more. Assuming that the board adopts the parameters resolution on the 28th, we would then be in a position, call it mid to late May, to price the bonds, which that's when the interest rate gets locked in. That's when your debt service payments are locked in. And as I mentioned earlier, about a month later in mid to late June is when the funds would actually hit your accounts for you all to spend. That's really the vast majority of this presentation. I will note on page 7, that is the maximum parameters schedule that will be, assuming you all opt to move forward, would be listed in the parameters resolution. That would be at your April 28th meeting. Not to belabor the point, as you see, the maximum amount that's listed is $5.5 million. The maximum interest rate listed is 6%. Again, we will not issue more than the amount of the projects that are outstanding, so approximately $4 million. And again, market willing, we would not enter the market if the interest rates are north of 6%, or frankly, even close to 6%. If the current market and interest rate environment has told us anything, it's that we need to be flexible and nimble. The parameters resolution gives us that flexibility and allows us to be nimble. If we didn't have the parameters resolution in place, we would be forced to price the bonds at one of your regularly scheduled meetings. So, round numbers, right? Once a month. If the market on that particular day is not attractive and we opted not to price the bonds on that day, then we'd have to wait a whole nother month to your next regularly scheduled meeting to adopt or to price the bonds. So this parameters resolution at the end of the day is customary. It's what you've done in the past. And it's frankly more important now, arguably, than ever because of the current market and the flexibility that we would need to enter the market. With that.
And this is an auction. We will have different companies bidding for our bonds. So that's when we're pricing, that's the 15 minutes that the companies have to.
A riveting 15 minutes, right?
15, usually nothing in 10 and then 5 minutes of hectic. But so we are going out for competitive bid. We're not placing this with anyone. And like Garrett said, if the markets are in total chaos, we have everything in place to go when everything calms down.
Yeah, good point. With that, like I said, that's all I really have. I'll open it up if you guys have any questions that I might be able to answer. Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now for the 25-26 budget. We'll jump right in. The budget process, if you remember, a lot of these slides in the beginning are the same as the prior years. The Act 1 index, we have an explanation. In 2006, the Act 1 index was put in place. It limited school districts the ability of how high they could raise real estate taxes and taxes for schools. There are some exceptions to go over the index. There are special ed exceptions and retirement exceptions. However, this year, we did pass the resolution to stay at or below the index, so we will not be using any of the exceptions for this budget. If you recall, again, the the maximum parameters, or the maximum increase is based on the state average weekly rate, wage, and the federal employment cost index. And the formula is noted there. Our formula is right here. The base index is 4%, and I say this every year, unfortunately, because the district is not wealthy, we can raise taxes above the 4%. So take that as it may. We have the ability, because of the formula calculation, and you can see the aid ratio, the higher your aid ratio, the poorer the district is. So given the formula with Act 1, we can raise taxes up to 5.3%. This chart is a history of the adjusted index, the base index, and our actual tax increases. So you can see some years we were below the index, and some we were above over the past few years. One thing to note on the right side is the ability to raise taxes is coming down. Where last year we had the ability to go up to 7.1%, this year we only have the ability to go up to 5.3%. Okay, our timeline, we are here today at the Finance Committee. We're presenting the proposed budget. We will be coming back in April to adopt the proposed budget. Remember, that is not the final budget. We will make adjustments as we gain more information between now and the May meeting, and then the final budget adoption in June. This is a budget that you will approve next month, and we put out, it has to be lay open for 30 days. So we will put it at our front desk, and anyone who wants to review the budget can come in and look at that. Okay, so if you remember, expenses need to equal revenue. So we'll start with revenues. The school district receives local revenue, state revenue, federal, and then other revenues. We'll go through those at this time. So the local revenues that the district has coming in are real estate, earned income tax, real estate transfer, business privilege, per capita, IDEA grant, investment interest, receipts from other school districts, and facility rentals. And there are a few smaller minor accounts in the local revenues. This year we had an increase, so we're projecting an increase for next year's budget of $580,000. The majority of that is an increase to the assessed value of the real estate in our district. And then, as again, I say every year, if you want a job in our district, you can find a job in our district. Residents are finding jobs, and the salaries are increasing because we had a larger increase, I believe about a $300,000 increase in the earned income tax. However, I will be sharing at the next board meeting, we did have another assessment appeal where we're going to lose $50,000 that we have to pay back for another large assessment appeal. This chart shows the total revenue received each year, along with the red line is the percentage of revenue, and that's a percentage of our total revenue that we bring in. So you can see that the red line is trending down slightly. We're hoping for that line to trend down a lot more. That saves our real estate taxes and our local taxes as the state tax increases due to the funding lawsuit. Whitehall will benefit from that lawsuit as we had last year. We're hoping this year again. In the governor's budget, we're looking to pick up some substantial increase. So we're hoping that trend line trends down for local revenue as we progress. Okay, state revenue. We receive basic ed funding, special education funding, transportation subsidy, bond reimbursement, state tax rebates, Ready to Learn grant. Ready to Learn grant came in maybe 20 years ago. It sat at about $500,000 for those 20 years. About 3 years ago, it jumped up to about $1 million. That is the vehicle they decided to use to hand out the additional money because of the funding lawsuit. So the Ready to Learn grant, if we ever see line items on your monthly board reports, that revenue is increasing drastically, and we're assuming again this year that's where they will fund the additional money the district should receive. And then we also have Social Security and PISA reimbursement. We get about 58% of Social Security and PISAs that we pay in, we get that returned in a subsidy. So $34 million, we're looking at about a $3,277,000. We did budget 100% of the governor's budget. I went back and looked at last year, and I thought we could pretty much count on what we got last year. You know, the word on the street was they were going to try to fund that for 3 years. Well, when I went back and did that calculation, that is the governor's budget. So, right or wrong, we have 100% of the governor's budget budgeted. And the way our district sits, there's money that goes into the basic ed, and there's money that goes into the ready to learn. There's about 150 districts out there in the governor's budget that did not receive a lot of money. So that is the conundrum in Harrisburg. If you're a legislator in one of those 150 districts, they're not receiving a lot of money because, given the calculation, they really should not. You know, it was given out based on the number of students years ago. They stopped that for about 20, 25 years and just gave percentage increases. A lot of districts, students left. Some of them are half the size. The basic ed funding was never reduced. However, it's politics. If you're a legislator in one of those districts, they don't want to hear that. So that's the fight. However, if they do move more money back to the basic ed funding, I believe the way the formula works, we should come out about even. However, they can change the funding formula also. So it's basically we're going with 100% of the governor's budget, and we'll have to wait and see what comes out. And then the increase in the Social Security and PISA reimbursement is driving most of the $3,277,000. Okay, and as you can see here again, this is what we really want to see is the state revenue increasing. So, and that is what we are seeing, and that line should trend up if they keep funding our deficit. Okay, federal, good or bad, I'm happy to see the ESSER money has gone away. We're back to our 4 titles. Unfortunately, we're back to about $1.5 million in federal money, and the decrease, we're looking at about $15,000. It usually does not change, but that number is hard to peg because right now it's for this year it's $1,490,000. They'll tell us a number for next year, and then there's adjustments. So it will be somewhere around $1.5 million for our federal money. Again, the big money from ESSER is gone. And you can see in this chart, you know, we're back to the funding levels 1920 prior to the pandemic. There's where the federal money increased over those years. And we are seeing a little bit of residual effect of, you know, all that money went away. We tried not to fund ongoing expenses. We'll say our fund balance did go up during that time, so we creatively used that money and increased our fund balance during that period of time. And then we have 9,000 accounts, and the majority of that is sales of assets, if we sell anything on municipal or insurance recoveries. Unfortunately, the insurance recoveries are not good because it's usually we wreck the bus and we receive money. So we budget about $30,000 into that. 21-22, that was a change in the GASBs for leases. That's when we got our copier lease, and we had to pick up on the revenue and the offsetting expense. So it wasn't $1 million came in, it was an offset to comply with the new GASB for leases. Okay, so revenues, you can see we just went over local, state, federal. So we're picking up on an annual basis about $3.8 million over the prior year. The prior year money is, that's a budget basis. So we did we're not picking up an additional $3 million of state. It's because last year we budgeted 50% of the governor's budget, and we got a lot more money in than that. So that's why the number can be a little misleading, but budget to budget, we did pick up $3.8 million estimate right at this time. Okay, now the expenditure side of the budget. We have instruction, support, operation, facilities, and other expenditures. So in the 1,000, this is basically our regular ed programs, special ed programs, charter schools, vocational education, and adult education, L-Tri-C. That increase, we're looking at about $4.4 million, $4.5 million increase in the 1,000s, increases in employee cost of salaries and health. I will jump ahead. We do have a breakdown. Our expenses went up about $7.5 million. We will get to an individual sheet on that. Again, charter school costs, and actually, if there's anything we may adjust for the final budget, the charter school costs appear to be coming in a little better than what we thought. They did have that reduction for the cyber schools last year. However, our budget increases, what we pay charter schools increases, so we really have to work on that a little bit to find out where we're going to end up. Increase in LCTI share and an increase in special ed costs. Again, that is pretty substantial at this point. So we can't see our historical amounts of what we've spent over the years, of course, increasing as we go, probably driven mainly by charter schools and special ed increases. Those two line items are the majority of that increase. Okay, support services, 2,000 accounts, guidance, psychological services, speech, library, teaching and learning, board services, principal services, public health, the business office, operations and maintenance, and transportation. So these are all the expenditures that cover those departments. Again, the majority of the increase, $2.5 million, is salary and health care. We do have an IU transportation costs that they transport the early intervention and some of our special ed kids if we do not have the ability to transport those students. This is one of the areas we are looking into. However, this is 1 year in arrears. So if we work on this and we can take back some of those students, we could save in next year's budget. But that IU transportation is about a $800,000 to $900,000 bill, which has gone up approximately $200,000 for this budget. And then you can see the support services increase over the past few years. Non-operating, this is basically student activities and athletics. And we have a $31,000 increase in those areas. And again, you can see the annual for the past few years. Facilities, this is if we do projects and pay them out of the general fund. We did transfer a few years ago money into the capital reserve. We've been paying for those out of that, but if we do projects out of the general fund, that's where they get coded to the 4,000 account. So we do not budget money there. We're not currently looking to do that in the 25-26 budget. And then the 5,000 accounts, this is the bond and financing with $800,000 of budgetary reserve in this amount. So we are up to a running rate of about $8 million for our debt service. You can see that's where I wanted to highlight that because it's $503,000 increase versus what Garrett was showing. But when we look at it, we had to build into the budget some of the money to get to that running rate that we owed for prior bond issues. And that is our debt service. So as we have been doing projects, you can see and borrowing over the last couple of years. We started with the high school, built a new elementary school, remodeled the middle school, you know, that's why we borrowed the additional funds. Okay, and you can see summarization of the of what we just reviewed. It is about a $7.5 million increase in expenses. Okay, again, the budgets must equal. So we're back. We have expenditures of about $103 million and revenue of $96 million. So we have a difference of almost $7 million. So this is to summarize, or we just showed about a $7 million increase in expenditures. We came up with the summary. So teacher salaries, that's always, I mean, that's what we do for a living. Educate kids, we need teachers. So just with salary increases, this does not include any health benefits or PSERS or Social Security. We have about a $1.6 million increase. We have 5 retirees this year, and they are factored into that amount. The para salaries, we did have some intention of cutting. Last year, that did not happen. We still have the same contingent of paras. It is something we are going to look at, but factoring in that budget-to-budget increase creates about $312,000. All other salaries, that's all the other departments, the increase for salaries is about $384,000. We had a medical increase of just a little under 10% for our health insurance, and that drives out the $842,000. We did have a contract change that went across all labor groups and increasing the cost share for all employees from 5% to 8% of the plans that are chosen. So that did mitigate a little bit of the medical increase. Retirement, that's next one down, retirement, $826,000 increase. That is just a formula. There was a slight increase in the rate, about 0.1% at 34%. So with that and the increase in the salaries drives out a $826,000 increase. The same with Social Security, $177,000. Tuition increase with the new teacher contract. It incentivizes teachers to gain more credits, to move across the columns, so we're anticipating an increase in that expenditure as the teachers go back for additional credits. Again, charter schools, as I said before, we're estimating at this time about a $500,000 increase. There could be a little bit of savings there, but we have to work the numbers, but I'm not guessing anything other than $100,000 or $200,000. Bond payments, the 503,000 is what we just reviewed to borrow the money to finish the projects that we have started. The next line item, special ed, $811,000. We will be working on that. That is a complicated calculation, and we will be looking at that between now and the final budget. Again, I can't promise any changes, but we will be looking at that as always. Buses, we have to buy $750,000 worth of buses that we currently have in the budget as it stands. Electricity, with the commercial accounts, they're changing some calculations, so there's some additional fees that come into effect with commercial accounts. So we're looking at about $120,000 in electrical costs. District repairs and maintenance, we did build an additional amount in to the maintenance budget, $204,000 increase over the prior year. And the IU transportation costs, as I mentioned before, it's probably going to stand there until next year. Maybe we can do something with that number, but that adds $200,000. And then we did add, the unfortunate thing of the ESSER money is we bought a lot of technology So now to keep up that technology, we will need to add money to the budget. We're looking at adding approximately $196,000 to the budget to keep the recycle process, our refresh process in place. So you can see it adds up to $7.5 million increase over the prior year budget. Fund balance. So our fund balance, audited fund balance at June 30th, 2024 is $10.9 million. The non-spendable piece of that is if stuff's prepaid at June 30th. So there's some prepayments we make. That's fund balance is not gone. It just needs to be categorized as non-spendable. But it is spendable once July 1st comes along. The assigned at $3,255,000, that is what we said we were going to use in fund balance to balance this year's budget. Good news is the revenues came in about 1.6 million above what we're anticipating at this moment, and we always have the 800,000 of budgetary reserve that we hope to never use. So if all fares well, we should use about $1 million to $500,000 of fund balance, unless anything crazy happens between now and June 30. And then we have the historical fund balance. So we can see again the increase in fund balance. Can't say we pocketed the federal money, that would be illegal. But we did use our federal money to help us through those years. We did put some money away through those years, but now you can see it's coming down. Whenever we pass a budget with less revenue than expenditures, you're going to see a reduction if it holds true in fund balance. So again, on the right is the last page we just reviewed. Okay, so we're here to the final page. We show the expenditures, the actual expenditures for 23-24, and revenue. We did use fund balance in that year, 463,000 in fund balance for 23-24. 24-25, that is our current budget we're operating under. You can see the Act 1 index was 5.5, 7.1, again 5.3, and then what we actually increased taxes. So that is the magic number we need to come up with this evening of what tax increase am I putting in the proposed final budget. Again, it's proposed final. It's not, a vote tonight is not to vote, not to increase taxes. It's to put the budget out on display. So that is the direction we need from the board tonight. Okay.
Does anyone have any questions on any of the material from the budget?
Mr. Millay,
excuse me,
when you talk about trying to trim the budget and all those other things, what percentage of the budget do we actually control? Take the 100%, what percent roughly do we control?
With the current personnel in place, you're probably looking at 5 to 10%. You know, you have to buy books, you have to replace computers. We have positions in place, the benefits that go with those positions as in the contracts. So there is a small portion that you truly can cut out. We have gone through the budget, superintendents, we've sat down, there's not a lot of fluff, as you can see in there. The costs are driven by, go back to there we go. There's what's driving our costs. It's outside of cuts to staff, you know, is really special ed costs are gonna be what they're gonna be. We have to transport the students, you know, maintenance and repairs, you can put that off. That's where a lot of districts are in trouble. Right now, I don't think the savior's coming from the feds or the state on those issues. Hopefully, like I said, we keep trending up with the, you know, what do you believe coming out of Harrisburg? Hopefully that stays in place. Again, if we don't hit the 100% of the governor's budget, then, you know, that we're in a more of a hurt. But charter schools are relentless. You know, that's not going away. We hear that they're going to do stuff in Harrisburg. I wouldn't bet on that. There might be some slight adjustments, but, you know, it's to cut this budget drastically, you're looking at staff.
So basically, we just have mandatory costs that the state says you will pay these costs. You will pay this.
Yeah.
Irregardless of whether we don't want to, if the alternative is, I guess my question is, if we don't pay it, if we decide we don't want to pay $6 million in charter schools, we don't pay half of it, we can do that, but we're just not going to get the funding. That's what they control.
That's an easy one. They just take it.
Yeah. So what we can control is a lot less than it appears in the budget.
Yes.
You know, we have $103 million expenditures right now, and we want to cut $10 million out of it. It's impossible. Because you can't just take 10% of the bulk, because we don't have the authority to do that.
No.
And I think
The
that's
charter
the key.
schools, you couldn't cut, I'm just going down the list, bond payments you can, special ed. You know, there's the staffing in special ed is driven by the caseloads. So you need a certain number of teachers, and anybody else wants to chime in on this. You know, you just can't cut teachers out of that. It would be the regular ed students and class size increases.
Yeah.
So, just to put it simply, we're not voting on creating any kind of new programs here. We're just voting on whether we're going to pay our bills.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, there's not a lot of new in here. It's keeping what we have. Like I said, we did buy a lot of technology with the ESSER money, and now it's, you know, you gotta, it only lasts 5-6 years, you have to start cycling through. And again, you don't want to let that sit until it's a big bill, you know, a few years down the road.
Right. And the goal here tonight is decide what number we want to put in there, full well knowing that's not the number we're approving. You know, this is a systematic process that has to keep moving along until we get to the final budget, which obviously then we'll put our stamp on. Can I ask you to go back to a slide? Sure. I apologize. If you can call that back up, because there's a slide that really spoke to me that I just want to talk on. But real quick, so I propose at this point we just kind of leave the number at the 5.3%, the high act index. My heart of hearts, I don't think that'll be the number, but you know, that'll at least give us the ability to start working that down. You know, looking at different ideas to see what we can do for that. The number I want to go to is number 13, slide 13. It's 6,000 local revenue historical. That lovely little chart you have there. There you go. So I look at this chart here, and the total revenue is signified by the blue bar that you could see, and as years have gone along, our revenue has gone up. But the red line is the dependency on the taxpayers, in my opinion. Okay, so as the income has gone up, we've done a little bit less of reliance on the taxpayers. Now, granted, we still have raised taxes, you know, because it was necessary to fill the gaps, but, you know, we're still trying to find ways to where we can take that impact off our taxpayers the best that we can. So, and we'll continue to do that to the best of our ability and look for ways to reduce that, but I just kind of wanted to point that out. And everyone can see that, so.
Yeah, and the unfortunate part, just to piggyback on that, is we, in this budget right now, with no tax increase, we're looking at 48 million, almost 49 million is from real estate. So almost half the budget is real estate taxes. So that's where the rubber really meets the road. You know, as more state money comes in, that percentage will come down. But
Correct.
right now, it's, you know, you're close to half for that.
Yep.
Mike, could you possibly do just a little explanation too, as far as, because I know you come back to us from time to time with business reassessment, property tax assessments, and how that affects our revenue?
It's the, there's an index out there. Yeah, this is a big, because we lost probably $1.5 million to $2 million. And that's every year, going over with reassessments. Where this district benefited from 145 and all the commercial over the years, where some of our neighboring districts are doing it now with warehouses, the district benefit, you got another 50,000, 100,000, 500,000. Warehouse goes in $500,000 to $1 million. The downside of that is because of the real estate market, the housing market going up, it drives a rate. I'm losing it now. The STEB rate, it drives down. So the commercial values are not dropping. They have dropped, but not in proportion to the increase in the housing market. So I guess the easiest way to say is if you own a house in our district for $200,000 and somebody builds one right next door, they would not value that house. If they're identical houses on the same street, you would value that house at $200,000. That one may have sold for $400,000, but they have a ratio that walks that value back to $200,000 because two identical houses should be paying the same amount. The problem is it could be 400, 200, there's a 50, and we are about at a 50% reduction. They take whatever it's sold for, reduce it by that amount. What's happening with the commercial markets is the values have dropped, which is fine, they have. Then they divide it by half. And the commercial gets that value. We lost probably right around $1 million when Lehigh Valley Mall reassessed. And that's on an annual basis. We just have another one that we're going to be voting on here in a few weeks of, I think it's close to $49,000 or $50,000. And that's $50,000 forever. So that is one of the pains of this district. You know, if we had $2 million extra in the budget this year and the budget next year and the following years, we're in a totally different light.
Mike, can I just ask a question? Or if you could give us an explanation if, and forgive me if I'm not saying this right, but if we would lower that percentage that we put in for tax increase, but we'd have to borrow from fund balance. What is that? I know in the past you told us that 0.5% equals this amount.
1% equals 500,000.
1%.
It's like 504,000, but it's right around
1% equals what?
400 or 500,000.
500. And then there's a limit we can take, or where don't we want our fund balance to be? That will
The
affect
state
us in
does
other
not allow
ways.
you to raise taxes if your free fund balance is above, I can go to that, is above 8% for our district.
8% being your fund balance divided by your total budget.
Yes. What do we got here? Oop. There we go. Oh, let's go one more. So there is we've historically been over. Now, we are going to have to leave on the budget money for last year, you know, because we said we were going to use, when we started, 3.2 million. That does come off the budget when you calculate the 8%. But we are, with our budgets increasing, we are getting close to the 8%. There is no requirement. It's just when you want to borrow money through the bond market, you know, you all get the S&P report. You'll get another one here when we, a couple weeks when we do this bond. You know, they're saying already our fund balance is below our peer groups with higher rates. You know, if we get downgraded, we did a analysis last year. You could pay $100,000 more in interest and fees. There is a point where they can not give you a rating and you don't borrow any more money, and then you don't fix any of your buildings. So, I mean, 8% is a good level to shoot for. You know, that problem is the budget keeps going up. Even that, if the fund balance stays the same, the percentage is decreasing.
So what you're saying, Mike, and what Mrs. Gallagher brought up is that where we have to be careful is that if that fund balance gets out of whack and we need to repair a building because it's falling down, and I think, again, we're not doing anything this year, but we have two buildings that need repairs.
Yes.
Middle school, Steckel School. So if you are not careful in what you do, and you cannot borrow through the bonding process, you go to a bank. And that percentage, as we know where it's at right now, is
Well, the bank's also gonna look at your
yeah.
credit rating,
So they
basically.
even, well, yeah, so you know, there's a fine line between just taking money out of the fund balance, and of course, if you do that 3 or 4 years in a row, and you have no fund balance, the state looks at you and says, and they don't run in with a bucket of money.
No.
So there's some issues that we have to work on, and yet be careful.
Yes.
And I think that's what we're at right now, realistically.
Yeah, I don't see us getting much more than what we have in the budget.
Right.
I just wanted to make a comment. I'd be remiss. It's never easy to look at, but I'd like to thank Mr. Millay and his staff for they put a lot of effort into this first blush, and we've met quite a bit to look at what our numbers are, and I know it's a difficult process, but I appreciate the work that he's put into this because it is very difficult, and he just went through a surgery as well. So working through all of that.
So far, so good
you know,
We made it.
I do appreciate that effort.
A sinus surgery, no less.
So we're good with 5.3 for post-final?
Yes.
Yeah, like I said, it's basically a placeholder for now until.
We have to put a number out there, and.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. I think that's reasonable.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks again, Mr. Millay.
All right, moving through the rest of the agenda, we have the GASB 75 calculation. Again, that's other post-employment benefits. We're required to go out and have that calculation done. The size of our district, we have to have a company do that for us. That contract that's attached is bid through the Pennsylvania Trust, which is run out of CSS Mr. Kopak, I can tell you there is no general fund money or tax money used in the cafeteria food service account. So that money comes in from federal and state reimbursement. The federal government is the community eligibility provision. The district went into that because we met the poverty numbers, and that is why all the students receive free lunches. And it's across the board. I understand what you're saying, but it's either all or nothing. We can't dictate to them what we will and will not take. If we want the money, what we don't have is the $20,000 of debt when students take lunches and don't pay for them. We can't not give them the lunch. With this, everybody gets a lunch and it is paid for. And I believe we're locked into that. We can stay in that for about the next 3 years. So, or the way the federal government's going, I don't know. But 2 years ago, we were allowed to stay in for 5 years. So, getting back to the Mets Culinary, the original contract did guarantee $200,000 profit to the district. We've been working with Mets. Given the inflation that was not here, 2.5 years ago when we bid this, they came back to us and, they wanted to lower that. In that contract we're asking to approve, we lowered it to $150,000. It basically comes down to the food we're serving. Haven't heard a complaint. For years before that, we heard complaints. We brought Mets in. I haven't heard any complaints on the food side. We had additional students eating. Lunch counts went up. If we hold them to anything, more than that, it's got to come out of they hire less people to serve or they lower the quality of food. So I'm in agreement with the, renewing that contract with that clause in it. All right. I think that's all we have for today.
I just had a question. The thing with the federal money for the free lunches, is that something that we were just guaranteed to get, or was that something that you guys had to do at the business office to get us approved for that, file?
There's a calculation with your poverty rate.
Yeah.
And we worked through that a few years ago, and once you hit that.
I remember you guys having to go through a process.
It's quite a number, or quite a calculation, but once you hit it, part of it is other districts, wealthier districts, maybe had to do it. You don't get 100% of the free amount. There is a calculation of free, reduced, and full pay. Even though there is no full pay, you don't get 100% of the federal reimbursement for the percentage of kids that could be full pay. So you really have to work. For our district, it works. For other districts, when they ran the math, I know there's a neighboring district, it just doesn't work. They'd be giving you free lunches, but then they'd have to subsidize the food service program. So for us, we got the numbers to work, and I understand it is. Yeah, I understand, there's people that can't pay for the lunch that are getting a free lunch, but, we got to take everything with the program. We can't pick and choose.
All right, so just for bookkeeping purposes, number 5, sharing discussion items there, Act 1 budget index and the Act 1 budget timeline. We covered those in the presentation, so we're all good to go there. So before we adjourn the meeting, just want to thank Michelle Corey and everyone that helped out with family night the other night. I know we'll get more highlights at the upcoming board meeting, but for me, as a resident, as a dad of a couple kids that goes to this district here, what an event, great job, community coming together, and so many great things going on, and it was nice to see it all here in our building. So just want to publicly thank everyone involved. And we'll adjourn the finance meeting at 5:44 p.m. Mr. President.